How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today, we're going to be talking with Justin Riele. He is a professional triathlete on the Everyman Jack team. In the past 2 years, he's actually gone pro, and we get to just dive into his life a bit for how he is balancing work life, how he's balancing that with his family life, being a newly married man, and also the professional triathlon scene and everything that he has and his hopes and dreams in that bucket. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to the awesome, great Justin Riele. Well, yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fun to get to interview lots of people, but you're one that I'm looking forward to interview, I think, a little bit more because I've gotten to interact with you some through the lives with Mark and stuff like that. So it's been fun to pinpoint those out. But yeah, I'm super excited to jump into all kinds of stuff if you're open for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet, man. So the first question that I want to ask you is about you. And in your own words, who is Justin?
Who is Justin? Justin is someone that goes all in on whatever he puts his mind to. Very intense and passionate person that cares a lot about everything I do, the people around me, my own success. Take things very seriously. I always have since I was a baby. I'm somebody that I think is really positive, picks people up around me. I'm an extrovert, very social, love to, build people up and, myself included, but others around me too. And somebody who dreams big and believes anything is possible.
Anything is possible. I like that. So where did this larger than life, or I guess why so serious? Where did this mentality come from?
I don't know. It's funny. I was talking to my parents about it a bit. I think it came from a combination of genetics and just the way I was raised. Ever since I was a kid, I've had a competitive edge. I think I get that from both my mom and my dad, but even more so my mom, to some extent. She's, an amazing person. She, has excelled and overcame adversity growing up in, a family without a ton of resources and no father. She had 6 brothers and sisters and put her way through Cal Berkeley, became an accountant at a Big 4 firm, then started her own business, which became successful. And then, in her 40s, when I was just a little kid, ran a marathon. She was really into triathlon in the early 80s, actually. And so, I've always had that competitive drive from both of my parents. My dad did an Ironman when I was about 6 years old. Ended up just doing 2 of them. It was never, nearly as serious as I am about the sport. But
sure.
I think, it came from my parents. I was always very into school and academics. Always wanted to have straight A's. I saw anything less as a failure. I felt the same way with my athletics and sports. Always just really intense, wanting to beat the other kids in the competitions ever since kindergarten. I don't know where it came from, I think.
Yeah. So it seems like you obviously admire your mom quite a bit, and it seems like she's obviously done quite a bit professionally and otherwise. Tell me about your dad. What was your relationship like with your dad growing up?
Yeah, it was amazing as well. My dad has been self-employed for 30 years, so growing up, I had the privilege of just being able to spend a ton of time with him that I know other people aren't always as fortunate. And he was always the dad that was just incredibly supportive from early in my life. He, was my T-ball coach, and he was the one driving me to baseball tournaments and water polo tournaments all through elementary and middle school. We were really close as a family. I have just one sister, so it was the 4 of us. And because he was self-employed, he could kind of set his own schedule, and my mom ran her own business. We'd spend 3-4 weeks in Tahoe every August, and I'd ski 25 days a year with my family, grew up mountain biking and golfing. So, some of my best memories with my dad are just those early years of going on adventures together. And, he was somebody that just, after doing an Ironman or 2, really just put me and my sister's success, athletically or from outside of his day-to-day career, put us first, the whole time we grew up. And high school wasn't so easy for my parents. I was not the person I am today in high school or my first year of college. So there was definitely some rough patches in my relationship with my parents because of that. But now, as I've aged and become more mature, we're all really close, and I respect them a ton. And it's just been awesome.
Yeah. Do you care to elaborate on any of those specific stories?
Oh man, I mean, some of it was just like classic high school stuff, getting into smoking weed, at a really early age, making
Hmm.
a lot of mistakes, going out, having problems with drinking, all through high school.
Wow.
And then, some run-ins with the law and some scares of like being missing, like
Mm.
some pretty serious stuff that like would worry any parents. I'm sure there were times where they thought about like sending me off to military school or boarding
Oh,
school.
wow.
I wasn't. I was always like decent enough at school to keep my grades up through high school, but I wasn't like all in on putting that first. And kind of the same with sports. I was a decent athlete, but was never good enough to play in college. Water polo or baseball were my sports in high school. And I just did them, kind of for fun, kind of passively, but really I was into girls and partying for
Yeah.
a solid 5 or 6 years, above
Wow.
kind of anything else in my life.
So how did that coincide with your straight A mentality?
I don't know. I'm somebody who's always been into a lot of different things and at times have spread myself too thin.
Sure.
Probably the best example is my freshman year at Vanderbilt. I got to school thinking, okay, I could do it all. And I was like, I'm going to major in neuroscience, go pre-med, join minor in music. So I joined the music academy. I joined an a cappella group. I wrote a fraternity and I had a long distance relationship. And then I just like all of those things kind of ended up at the B minus level, we'll say. I just wasn't that great at any of them. And
Wow.
so that was the first time in my life where I had to take a step back, check my ego and say, all right, I need to, pick and choose and prioritize some things in my life that I really care about. But yeah, the partying and that side of me at that time in my life definitely caused grades to take a little bit of a hit. Probably is the
Sure.
thing that prevented me from getting into an Ivy League school. And I settled for Vanderbilt, still a great school, but the dream was Harvard, Stanford, Yale, and I just
Yeah.
got rejected from all of them because I had not done what was required to
Mm.
get into that level of a university.
Yeah. So what gave shift to the, okay, I think I'm going to leave this kind of party life, crazy life behind and move forward with like more of a focused mentality?
Yeah, I think some of it was just the process of maturing from age 20 to 21, having a little bit of a, without elaborating in too much detail, like having a little bit of a run in with kind of like a very scary, like, everything could have gotten turned upside down type moment where it was
Mm.
like, got to the point where it was a little bit of a slap in the face. Like you gotta change this or you're going to end up on the wrong path.
Mm.
And so that did it. And a very serious conversation with my parents that I thought I was going to get pulled out of school, basically pulled out of
Wow.
Vanderbilt and kind of put out on my own. So it was an intense time and probably the best thing that could have happened to me at that time. And my last couple of years of college, were just so much better. And, really, I think I made a lot of mistakes that people can make in college in the fraternity scene. I think I made a lot of those like actually earlier in high school.
Okay.
So by the time I was 21, I kind of quote unquote gotten it all out of my system. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, stop doing drugs, stop being into the things that you just, can't mess around with if you want to be just a good person and have a successful career and relationships around you.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. It's really impactful. So neuroscience and music,
Yeah.
did you carry those majors, minors as you had this shift?
Yeah. I didn't really know what I wanted to do going into college like so many people. I thought maybe pre-med. Um, and I loaded up my freshman year with, calculus, physics, biology, organic chemistry, and I had knocked out so many of the hard classes by the end of my sophomore year that I ended up sort of like looking at all the classes I had taken and saying, okay, what major makes sense? And I was really into mental health, still am. I spent a good chunk of my career working on a mental health product and
Oh.
neuroscience was a really nice crossroads. So the upper level classes at Vanderbilt were really cool. It was, neurobiology of addiction,
Mm.
biological basis of mental disorders. So those were the classes that I was passionate about. Some of my favorite in college, and I got, really into those. And then I did some neuroscience research and ended up publishing a paper with my, advisor on I was basically shooting rats with Adderall and then
Okay.
dissecting their brains and running protein assays on what are the downstream impacts on the dopamine system from different stimulants. So yeah, I just found like I was really into drugs, you might say,
Yeah.
all the way to my passion for neuroscience and how they impact the brain.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of that. And then music was something I was always into. I grew up playing classical piano
Oh,
competitively until 8th grade, in which I basically quit to join a rock band and sing in choir. So I was in, all state honor choir in high school. So the natural evolution is, of course, to join an all male a cappella group in college, which
yeah.
was probably the most defining part of my collegiate experience, actually.
Really? How so?
Well, I joined this a cappella group called the Vanderbilt Melodors my freshman year. And it's like, you walk around on campus like a wide eyed freshman, not knowing what you're going to do that year. And there's this group of dudes singing. And I said, hey, I do that. That looks fun. And I'd actually seen a couple of their YouTube videos in high school. So I knew who they were and joined the group, made it as a bass because I have a very low voice. I'm actually not a great soloist, but I can basically go dum, dum, and that's,
Hmm.
every a cappella group needs somebody that does that. And so
Yeah.
we ended up touring around the country. And then our junior year, we ended up auditioning for a TV show called The Sing Off on NBC.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we not only made the show, but we went to Hollywood for 3 weeks and we won the show. So we won 50
Oh, wow.
grand. We toured all over the country. We went to Europe and then I became president of the group and had just this amazing experience running, riding the momentum of having won that show. And you're basically just gigging around, partying and touring the world with your best
Wow.
friends in college. It was a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah. So this may be jumping ahead, but is that how you got that picture with the Barack Obama and Michelle Obama picture?
It is. This one to flip over the wall.
Yeah.
This is a photo of me and my a cappella group
Okay, nice.
at the White House for the 2015 White House Christmas party. Yeah, that was one of the coolest experiences of my life for sure.
Yeah.
It was just us and them in the great room of the White
Yeah.
House, and yeah, we got to sing for them. We did some cool stuff. We were on the Today Show, and um, meeting the Obamas was definitely the highlight there.
Yeah.
And I also met my wife, so I can't leave that
Oh,
out.
you met her at this?
My senior year of college, her all-female a cappella group at a school called Miami of Ohio in Oxford, Ohio, invited us up for their invitational concert.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, we're like all-male group, all-female group. Hell yeah, we're doing this. 4-hour
Yeah.
drive. And we went up for the weekend. And, we actually barely talked that weekend, but a couple weeks later, I decided to go back up and properly take her out. And the rest is history. She was a freshman at the time. I was a senior. I had a job lined up in San Francisco. So for the first year, we were like, this is never going to work. But we ended up doing 2 years of long distance, flying back and forth on these
Wow.
horrible frontier red eye flights from Cincinnati to San Francisco. And then she graduated in 3 years and moved to San Francisco.
Wow. So do you feel like I don't know if you've ever maybe lacked in confidence. You don't seem like the kind of guy who did lack confidence, but after some of these achievements and you had these successes, did that help you and afford even more confidence in the pursuit of your wife, Lauren?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't lacked confidence much. There have been times, particularly in triathlon, actually of all places, I think, that have been testing. But yeah, with my pursuit of Lauren, I've always been somebody that sort of knows what he wants and goes and gets it. And I think Lauren is very similar, and we had fireworks from the start. And
Mm.
we jokingly always said, even from that first summer, that we were going to get married, which sounded just absolutely crazy to people around us. But it was pretty special, and we both knew it. And then 7 years later, we got married.
Wow. So what is it about Lauren that you knew you wanted?
I think, man, there are so many things. It's tough. I should pull up my vows and reread those. But
Oh, there you go.
I she is unlike anyone I've ever met. She's incredibly selfless, incredibly generous, which are skills that I have to actively work on. I think she brings out the best in me. Um, and we've just been an amazing combination. Where I lack, she fills in, and where she lacks, I fill in terms of just inspiring confidence in her, and encouraging her that she can do anything she sets her mind to, because she can. She's brilliant. And I've been just super attracted to the way that she treats people, and puts a smile on everybody's face that she meets. I think there's not a person I've ever met that spends time with my wife and doesn't immediately love her, or just feel better after spending time with her. And I love that.
Yeah, that's really special. How long have you guys been married then? To 2022?
Our 2-year anniversary will be in July 2nd. Yeah, so 2 years.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do for that anniversary? You think anything special?
I don't know. Last year we went to San Francisco. We haven't planned it. We've got a lot going on right now. She's starting her new job as a physician assistant next week after St. George.
Okay. Well,
And then we've got her birthday at the end of the month, and we're planning some travel. We are going to Mont Tremblant for a surprise, a triathlon.
yeah. The old vacation triathlon.
At the end of June. But we're going with her parents, so that's going to be a really,
Cool.
really exciting trip. And then we'll figure out the anniversary after that.
Yeah, for sure. Did she go back to school to do a PA?
She did, yeah. You need your master's to become a physician assistant. So that's actually what brought us to Henderson and Las Vegas area. We were living in San Francisco. She applied all over the country, and we had several options to choose from, and one of them was Las Vegas. And so we said, man, good cost of living, beautiful weather, great environment for training. The program was really good. And that's where we landed, and it's been an amazing, pleasant surprise. We really enjoy living here, and bought a house and planted down some roots. Not necessarily permanently, but we're on our 3rd year here and really enjoying it.
Good. Yeah, that's really neat. It's interesting. PAs and NPs are somewhat similar.
Yeah.
My wife is graduating this weekend from NP school, and then we're gonna go fly out west to go see about a job for her in like the next 2 weeks. So it's just interesting how that.
Amazing. Yeah. Congratulations to her. I know it's such a grind when you're going through the schooling process, and now I know the job is right around the corner for her, and it's sort of like you buckle up for the next adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, looking forward to it. So 2017, you did your first triathlon.
2016. I had to double check.
2016. Okay. So 2016, so tell me about that.
Yeah, I graduated college, and it was actually a month before graduating. In April of 2016, I was like, man, I got this job lined up in September at a consulting firm, pharmaceutical consulting in San Francisco. I'm like leaving my college life behind. And I'm kind of chubby and out of shape. And I used to think of myself as an athlete, and I really couldn't at the end of college. And, as I said, my dad had done an Ironman, so I knew what they were.
Sure.
And I had this Euro trip planned on, I think we did like 90 days in 15 countries on like a $3,000 budget or something. It was like most of my money at the time, probably all of it. And I was like, there's a half Ironman in Switzerland, and I could theoretically fly into Zurich, do that race. And by the way, my now wife was studying abroad in France that summer. She's fluent in French and did a program there. And I kind of convinced myself that somehow doing this half Ironman in Switzerland was a good idea, because she could take the train there. And it was like this very half-baked plan. I had basically 6 weeks to get ready from being out of shape and just try to finish the thing. And then I was like, we could spend a week in Switzerland, it'll all work out. And I could talk about this story forever because it's pretty awesome. But
please do.
Then looked up the price of a hotel in Zurich. I was like, oh no. And emailed the race director like 2 weeks before the race and said, like, I'm a 23-year-old American, 22. I was 22, 22-year-old American. I've never done triathlon. I don't have any money. I'm signed up for this race, and I don't have any gear. And basically they set me up with a homestay family. And I was like, oh, can my girlfriend come? And they said, yes, of course. And I arrive.
What?
I arrive and none of my luggage shows up. I have nothing. I have a backpack with like a laptop. No underwear, no socks, no gear, no running shoes. And anyway, the story basically goes, I finished the thing. I rented a road bike. I borrowed shoes. And it was an amazing experience. I still remember that first half Ironman like it was yesterday, and Lauren at the finish line waiting for me, and I was so proud. I also thought I like crushed it, and I was 29th out of 34 in my age group.
Okay.
I finished 1000, and I wrote this down, 1081st in that
Wow.
race, and I went 5 hours and 39 minutes. I ran 2:10.
Wow.
And yeah, I still think that's got to be the record for the slowest debut 70.3 of any pro.
Yeah.
But I'd open it up to see if anyone can challenge me out at 5:39. But
Oh, we'll
pretty
mark
awesome. That was my
this.
starting point in the sport, and wasn't like immediately hooked.
Yeah.
But always was like, oh, I think I could get better at this.
So then how did that life progress? Like what got you hooked? What was the next step in this journey?
Yeah, well, I then went on to travel Europe for 60 days and mostly drink beer and stay in hostels with my best friend at that time.
Lose the
Started my
fitness.
career in San Francisco. Was really heads down. It was a pretty tough firm, I think. A lot of consulting firms are, but I was working 60-hour weeks pretty darn quickly. I'd say like
Mm.
after just 2 months. And I was sort of like, man, this is adult life, I guess. Like you just wake up, you grind from 8 to 8 every single day. You come home, you drink a beer, you go to bed. And it's basically what I was doing Monday through Friday, and some probably 4 or 5 hours of Saturday or Sunday work. So it was a tough entry to San Francisco. I also lived in a 2 bedroom, 1 bath apartment with 3 people. That
Oh,
was really more of a 1 bed, 1 bath, and that's pretty normal for early 20s in San Francisco or New York City. But
yeah.
we had a good time. But I was still mountain biking and skiing and trying to do other stuff on the weekends. I have lots of passions. Um, but the next year, I sort of just met some other people that were like, "Hey, we're doing a local triathlon," and so it really started doing a local Olympics in the Bay Area. I did I think the Donner Lake Triathlon one year, and the Lake Tahoe Triathlon, and the Napa Triathlon, and just started passively training. Maybe 5 to 7 hours a week in 2017. But I did sign up for one more race at I think it was 70.3 Santa Cruz that year.
Okay.
And just started riding my bike on weekends and getting really into it. I think the real turning point where I started taking things more seriously was meeting some guys on the team Everyman Jack that were a Bay Area based amateur team, and starting to train with them and just being like, oh my gosh, these guys are so fast. I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Mm.
And just getting to know them and talking to them and training with people that kind of pick you up. They were great guys and friends first, and then training partners, definitely
Yeah.
not the other way around. And spending time with people that were really passionate, that were achieving success. I just sort of like got sucked in and started training hard, started going to the pool at 5:15 every morning before work, or not every
Mm.
morning, 2 or 3 days a week, as part of
Yeah.
Turtle Patch Fitness program under Matt Dixon.
Okay.
And he was a big influence on me the first couple of years in sport, as I kind of went from that 5.5 hour to 5 hour to 440, 70.3. And I made that progress, relatively quickly in about a year and a half. I like to think some of that's, some genetic luck from both my parents, who are endurance athletes and
Mm-hmm.
talented. So I think some of that contributed to just, getting relatively good in the amateur field in a couple of years of just being consistent of, 10 to 12 hours a week of training.
Yeah. So then at what point, because you said when I asked you earlier about confidence, you said like one area that you would struggle with it was in triathlon. So was it at this point that started to hit? Did you start to hit a wall, or where did the confidence piece play in this journey?
Yeah, I think there's been lots of moments in triathlon of ups and downs, but definitely mostly ups, or I don't think I'd be doing this as a
Sure.
passion project and a hobby outside of my career. That was one of them. Probably applying for EMJ that first year, not getting in. I was like, man, I don't know if I'll ever make it to
Mm.
being a good amateur. I'm just an amateur. Am I ever going to make it to Worlds? Or am I ever going to actually get to race Kona or win a race? Those all felt like a pipe dream in 2018 for me to get to that level. Then there was probably another turning point, where I went to my first Worlds a couple years ago. Again, this would be after making Everyman Jack and making big progress and sacrificing a bit more, thinking, man, maybe I can race for a podium at Worlds. And I think I was 50th or something in my age group at 2019 70.3 Worlds as an amateur. And I was like, oh man, I'm just not good, right? So just a little bit of that self-doubt can creep in, and then turning pro last year would probably be the biggest test and trial that I've faced in
Hmm.
the sport, which was, I'd won 6 amateur titles. I had podiumed at Kona and won St. George Ironman World Championship as an amateur. So I felt like the only decision was to turn pro to continue to challenge myself. And even though I didn't think of myself as a pro and I was keeping my full-time job, I was just like, man, like, I think I'm ready, but I don't know. And then I
Yeah.
basically turned pro, got my butt kicked and got injured, and had my whole year derailed last year, which was the toughest mental challenge that I've had to,
Hmm.
face, and kind of just struggling with just dealing with adversity, I guess, the plans not going how you might have pictured them in your head.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, you know, part of, I guess, my personality is to just like defer to that confidence that comes a bit natural to me. And again, trying to draw a line between cockiness and confidence, I think is sometimes difficult for people. And I feel like
Mm.
as I've aged, I'm 30 now. I'm older and wiser, you might say, spent longer in triathlon about what's important to me. And yeah, you have to be confident though to be successful, especially at this level.
Yeah. So what do you think it was? Two questions. First, the first time you applied to MJ, you got denied. The second time, I'm assuming you didn't get denied. What was the just compare and contrast kind of the two, I guess if it was email or however you got the news from being denied and then getting on the team, what was that like?
It's funny. Getting denied was it was not unexpected because I just knew my times and results were not to the caliber of most of the athletes on the team. And that's
Hmm.
kind of the bar to man to get, now it's about like sponsorships. Like you look at, let's take the feed high performance team, for example, which I'm not on,
Hmm.
right? Like I look at Mark Dubert, Jackson Laundry, Ben Canute, Lionel Sanders. Like you don't get on that team by being almost as good as all of them. You get
Yeah.
on that team by being as good or better. And every
Yeah.
man jack is very same. It's very similar. The team only takes like 10-ish new people every year. And every year it seems like those 10 people are like, oh, I won this Ironman. Oh, I was podium at Kona. And the bar is raised. And so when I got rejected, it was, I would say, it lit a fire to chase the goal even harder.
Hmm.
And the next year, I remember I was on a ride with Rich Viola, who was the CEO and founder of the brand Everyman Jack, the company, and the team, of course. And he very just passively said, was like, oh, yeah, yeah, we'll get you on the team. You want to work it? And I was just like, yeah. And I just like remember going home being like, man, like my 2-year goal was just achieved. And it was just like in the most
Yeah.
nonchalant way. That's
Yeah. Just in a
classic
bike.
Rich, just like, oh, yeah, sure. Knowing it was a big deal for me at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it was awesome because now some of my closest friends, I mean, Matt Schaefer and Devin Volk, are staying with me all week this week. And there's lots of folks over the years that are not even on the team anymore. They're some of my closest friends,
Mm.
that I met through that team. And it's been a really special thing to be a part of.
Yeah. What happened, like performance wise, or did anything happen performance wise from when you got rejected to like that nonchalant, oh yeah, we'll get you on the team moment?
Yeah, just consistent training. Nothing groundbreaking, just continuing to chip away. This sport just takes time. And I think
Mm.
people who are patient see success in the sport. You can't make magic happen quickly, or you basically get burned out, injured, or some other bad outcome. And I just feel like just chipping away and being consistent is all that it took. And I went from that, say, 440, 435, 70.3 time down to, I think, 415, 420 is sort of what it took, and making podiums in the age group field consistently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal.
I think the real
So
jump happened actually after making the team, though, because when you make
give
that
you a
team and
boost.
you show up to your first team camp and you get your butt kicked by all these guys that have podiumed at Kona, won races, you're like, whoa, like the bar is, the
Yeah.
level, there's just so much room. And I still feel that way now. I race against Sam and Lionel now, and I'm like, oh my God, I am not even close to those guys' level. Like
Yeah.
it's unbelievable to me. It's still so inspiring. And I've always looked at people who are better than me and faster than me and just been inspired by them.
Yeah. No, same, 100%. Yeah. So I applied 2 years ago to MJ, got denied. And then last year, I applied again and I got an interview with Rich, and then I did get denied again. But so as you're talking to me about this story, my chest is burning within me. I'm like, oh, I gotta get out there and do something. So it's cool to hear your story now that your bar has been set to the next level. I mean, like racing Salmon Line, I watched your recap video of after you did Oceanside and, the pinch me moments you talked about when they came past you on the bike and then you grabbed on and stayed with them. It was a pretty cool, I guess, full arc of your story there, just from a performance perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the coolest moment I've ever had in the sport. That moment of just like, wow, I'm actually in the group and I'm not about to get blown out the back.
Yeah.
And I'm riding with two of the guys that I've looked up to since I started the sport. It was pretty awesome. So I hope I could do it again over and over. And it wasn't
I'm
like
sure you can.
I didn't peak and now it's just all going to go downhill because you have
Yeah.
that's that confidence shaking. You're like, man, was
Yeah.
that a
Yeah.
fluke? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I can actually do it again because it was really, really hard. But yeah, that was a pretty cool moment
Yeah. So when is your next race, really quick?
this weekend.
Yeah, St. George.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
racing St. George on Saturday. So just did my final little prep session this morning and one more day of Zoom calls and then making the drive over there on Thursday.
oh, beautiful. Well, we look forward to see how that goes.
Yeah, it's gonna
Um,
be a fun one.
yeah. So I would love to take just a bit more time to talk about EMJ,
Of
because some
course.
people may have not ever actually heard of it. So maybe unpack what it is, why it exists, what are the values that it holds, and just give us the whole spiel.
Yeah, Everyman Jack is an all-natural men's grooming product company based in Tiburon, California, at the base of Mount Tam. They create products like deodorant, body wash, shampoo, shaving creams, body soap bars, all sorts of stuff, and they're available
Hmm.
in CVS, Target, Whole Foods, etc. The company was founded by Rich Viola about, I want to say, 12 or 13 years ago, who was an avid triathlete, actually won his age group at Kona, and started a team around it as a passion project and marketing endeavor for the brand Everyman Jack. And so that team then grew into essentially a pretty elite amateur team. It started as maybe 15, 20 guys and then grew and they took applications and scaled a bit to support the brand. And then he established partnerships with other brands that we work closely with, like Win Republic, NV, Felt, Feed, Roca, to name a few. And yeah, the company's amazing. The people that work there are great. And the team has been, something I think pretty special in the amateur world of racing. So it was always just kind of known as an elite amateur team of a bunch of guys that love triathlon, but also we're just amazing humans. Like people are doctors, teachers, military, um, you know, tech workers, whatever you name it. But almost all of us have full-time jobs and treat triathlon as a passion, sort of second to our jobs, our family, or third to our jobs and our families, I would say. Um, but still strive for, a really high level of performance on the race course. And, as some of the guys have been on the team now, myself for 6 years and others, there are now four of us that are racing in the pro field, but are still part of Everyman Jack, which is a first for the team.
Yeah, that's special.
And Rich has been, just great and help and amazing in supporting our journey into the pro ranks, and allowing us to stay on the team, which is mostly full of amateurs, but a bunch of pros that just happen to still be amateurs racing the pro field, like myself.
Yeah. So have you seen personally your influence and leadership, I guess, grow from the first time? Because you said you joined that and like, oh man, that like really leveled up your experience and then your performance. But then now you're at the top end of that. So your new people are coming in and you're enacting that influence. How has that been for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I just try to be myself. I'm pretty much an open book and, kind of what flies into my head comes out my mouth most of the time. So I haven't thought too deeply about, okay, who do I want to be to, enact a certain type of influence. I wouldn't say it's
Hmm.
been that kind of approach, but just trying to be myself, trying to pick everyone up around me on the team, definitely welcoming the new guys and encouraging them, and hopefully just inspiring them by the way I approach training. Because I think at my level, I have a unique approach, which is like I keep it really fun. I keep it third to work and my family. I don't take myself too seriously. I still drink beers at camp. There's a lot of guys in the amateur field that don't do that, I think on the team or off the team sort of like misprioritize things in their life, where they're, if you're training 15 to 20 hours a week and all in on triathlon or all in on this singular goal of making the podium at Kona or whatever it might be, like it can be all consuming and you can put blinders on and not see around you. And so I try to inspire the people around me to know that like it's possible to achieve a pretty high level of performance with balance in your life, and not taking yourself too seriously and eating ice cream every night. And, yeah, you got to train hard and you got to show up every single day. And you got to be smart with your training and be data driven, and all the things that I pride myself in, and my coach, for sure, has been just a massive part of my success. But coming to camp this year did feel a bit different. There were some new guys on the team that sort of openly said, like, you've been a huge inspiration in my triathlon journey. And that's the first time I've heard something like that sort of straight to my face from somebody that's a new guy on the team. And that meant a lot to me. I was kind of taken aback, like, really? Like, yeah, I guess so. That makes sense. Like, I can think of a lot of guys that were when I joined the team, Matt Malone, Clay, MG, and they still are. They're still some of the top guys on the team, and they're still on the team. But yeah, it is important to note that as you have success, there's a certain responsibility of that comes with.
Yeah. Do you like that responsibility?
Definitely. Yeah. I've always liked being in leadership positions. I'm in one in my day job. I lead and manage teams. Like that's the thing that motivates me the most about the work I do. And I think I've always been drawn to that. But I was never really good enough, in high school to be a team captain. I was never a captain ever, until I was president of my Cappella group. And so this is like definitely the highest athletic achievement I've ever, even like back when I was an amateur making podiums, it was the highest athletic achievement I had ever had, of any kind, which I think is unique for pros because a lot of them come from like elite running backgrounds, or they ran D1 or they were in the Olympics or whatever it might be. This is all new to me. So it's been really cool.
Yeah. I almost wonder with singing, like I know you guys do a lot of different work. Like I'm assuming breathing technique work on like how to, I don't know, hold more oxygen and sing better. Maybe that gave you a little bit of a push into the foray of professional sport. If you can hold more oxygen, hold that note a little longer.
I think it's possible, but I don't know. We'd have to check with like Olaf Alexander Boo on that one. I don't know if that. Yeah, I don't think that holds much water because I was a much better singer at age 22 than I am at 30. I'll tell you that, and I was a much worse triathlete.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So one thing you just said a few minutes ago was like that one of your core sources of motivation or that you really enjoy doing is being a leader in the work that you do with the company Upstart, as well. I'm assuming that it is Upstart, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me how you got involved in Upstart and how you found something that truly does bring that. Because I think a lot of people lack that in our world for finding a job or work that like truly fulfills them and they can find a source of motivation and just momentum with.
Yeah. Our career path's been interesting. I started in pharmaceutical consulting, doing mostly data analytics, operations type stuff. Jumped over to a health tech company where I worked on a mental health app in the marketing, business development, sales, analytics, I guess role where there was 20 to 25 employees, and we scaled from about 20 to 100 employees over the couple of years that I was there. And then I took a couple of years off during COVID and was ready for the next thing. And that's where I found Upstart through a connection of an executive I had previously worked with at the earlier startup. And so I joined Upstart as effectively the first marketing hire underneath the VP of marketing in a new department focused on establishing relationships with banks and credit unions. We do AI lending, so we use artificial intelligence to make better credit decisions, to provide better rates to borrowers looking for personal loans or auto loans, and soon to be mortgages and HELOCs. And we partner with banks and credit unions to, get us the capital to fund those loans. So again, I knew nothing about finance, fintech. My background was in health tech, but I was pretty good at marketing, pretty good with people, good with project management, leadership, and managing teams, which is a lot of the success I think I have in my career has been attributed to that, just the kind of GSD mentality. Don't wait to do something tomorrow if it can be done today. Staying organized, communicating effectively. Those are all really important things, I think, in a management position when you're motivating, inspiring a team to do their best work as well. and coaching and providing performance. So those are the things, you ask about Upstart specifically, like the things I love about Upstart. The mission is not the top thing for me. It is for some people to provide and enable better access to credit. But for me, it's just working with the people that I get to work with every single day. We just have a really good team, and the company culture, and it's largely driven by my manager and myself. Within our immediate team is we don't tolerate poor performance or negative attitudes. Like if that's who you are, you're no longer with the business. We've made lots of cuts and made those tough decisions at times, some painful. But I think it enables the people who are still on the team to feel incredibly motivated by every single person you work with. And it's just a joy to like be in Zoom meetings with people that you like to work with. They're just good people. They all care and they like to do their best work. And so for me, I now lead 2 different departments. One is auto retail, focused on establishing relationships with car dealerships as we get into the auto lending space. And I think we're at about 16, 17 people on my team now, with 4 direct reports. And I travel a bit to Austin and Columbus, which is always great to see the team in person, since I pretty much work fully remotely from my home office here. But yeah, the thing that gets me up and how I found Upstart is, the people. It's how I got into the company, an existing relationship. And then I actually hired one of my closest friends and the person who married me, cool. My officiant, who was also, we literally have matching tattoos from our acapella group. And he's actually reported to me for 6 years now, as, one of my right-hand people on my team of the other 4 of us. So I don't want to say like, oh, work is family. Like I don't subscribe to that mindset necessarily, because people need to do what's best for them, move on to other career opportunities as they progress in their careers. But we are a tight team and we enjoy working with each other and pushing each other, just like maybe a sports team would. And I don't think all company cultures have that type of, like, we need to be excellent. We need to be gold medal level at everything we do. And we don't just clock in, clock out. We push and we push and we strive to improve.
So what is the greatest source of motivation you would think for, or you would say are with the people who directly report to you and then those on down the line?
For them specifically?
Yeah, like, because what I'm kind of, I guess, maybe it's poorly phrased, when thinking about you as a leader and you have this initiative or whatever, you have this goal, like you said, you have these like excellence that's expected. How do you then pass that on to them, cast that vision in a way that they get just as excited or motivated to like, okay, yeah, let's do this?
Yeah, I mean, some of it, I think, literally comes from the way you present yourself in a meeting. Things like facial expressions, vocal inflection, the words you choose to use, explaining the why behind a certain initiative and why it's important to you and what's in it for them to some extent. I think I have a team of people who all want to progress to the next promotion, make the next, get the next pay bump, and just make an impact on the company's results and the projects that we launch. And so there's a little bit of that that's certainly motivating, and painting a picture for, hey, we have this new project, like this is going to be a big deal because 1, it's going to impact the company's bottom line, and here's how, and 2, it's going to make you look amazing, and here's what that could look like if you're successful. So painting that picture, and it's similar, like, hey, if you have a great performance at this race, you're going to get a world slot. Like just painting the result, making it very tangible. Like this is what you're going to get out of it. And I think some teams, you just don't really know why. You're like, man, I'm working so hard and I don't know if I'm going to get a promotion or if it's even going to matter. And I think that's what, as a leader with some of the executive visibility that I have, not all of it, but some more than they do, oftentimes you have to be able to translate why this is so important to so many people. And yeah, we also just keep the work fun. Like we work in demand generation marketing, which is a combination of creative and analytics and being data driven. It's everything from like running big paid ad programs to webinars to conferences and events that we attend and trade shows to cold calls and emails. I have a team of 9 folks that are picking up the phone, calling banking, credit union executives or GMs at car dealerships all day, every day. And that job's a grind. And I respect the hell out of them for, taking on that entry level sales job. And what they want to know is, when am I going to become a closing account executive? When is that step? And how do I get to that next step? And it's sort of like, hey, you put in the grind, you hit your targets, there's a pathway for you. And so painting that picture as well is super important. But Yeah, it's been interesting. I never, I even just talking about it like this, it's like starting in neuroscience, I never thought I'd be a marketing leader. But I found that actually marketing to so many people surprises much more data driven
Mm.
than people think.
Yeah, interesting. So your leadership style sounds like it's more like hands off, motivated. I mean, you give them the list of like, hey, here's the things you can do to like deliver in terms of targets, but you're pretty removed. Like you wouldn't say you're a micromanager or anything like that.
Yeah, I think if you have to micromanage people, they're probably not the right people.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of a hot take, but I think giving people autonomy that are high performers to make their own decisions, carve their own path. Obviously, there's trainings and encouragement and guidance that needs to be given, but knowing when, I think there's an art to knowing when to do that versus when to give people space to, figure things out on their own. So yeah, I meet with my team once a week and we have a team meeting once a week. And we're chatting back and forth. I'm providing feedback and thoughts on lots of different projects that they're working on. But oftentimes, I like to hire people that are better than me at least one or two things. And that helps up level the team for sure.
Yeah. So you have like these very distinct, at least based on our conversation, like sections of your life where you have professional triathlete, EMJ life. You have this professional at work life where you're delivering, the work that you do with the company Upstart, and then your marriage. There's three opportunities here for you to draw on to make an identity for yourself. But do you draw personal identity from any of those, and one more than the other, or do you do it a different way?
I think I'm figuring that out, Seth, as I become a real pro, let's say.
Yeah.
I've always thought of triathlon. I want to say until this year, I've always thought of triathlon as just an extra thing I do in my life. Kind of like all this other stuff I used to do, a cappella, skiing, golfing, traveling, like all things I used to be super into. And now it's basically just triathlon and work and my wife. And, I don't think my wife would be upset by me saying this, but because she's been in grad school, absolutely grinding for basically the total amount of hours that I work and train in a week, and probably a little more. She's basically 8 to 8 Monday through Friday and 9 to 5 Saturday, Sunday for like 2 years, it feels like. I was able to prioritize work and triathlon 1 and 2, and then any free time she had, I was basically free and prioritizing her. And so as I navigate this next phase of my life where like she enters a normal job, we want to make sure we're doing adventures, we're backpacking, we're golfing, we're skiing, we're doing all these things that we love and all the things that sparked our relationship. And, we did do a 3-week honeymoon in South America and Patagonia this January where I didn't bring a bike. It was the longest I was off the bike or not in a pool. I basically went 20 days in January without riding or swimming. It was amazing. And so there is some tension to like these other passions I have in life versus pursuing the next level of triathlon, which is a very serious, all-consuming endeavor. When you also have a day job, there's kind of like only room for those two things, which I'm just now starting to figure out how to navigate in my life right now. And I've got to figure out how the heck I'm going to do that.
Yeah. I was going to say, how are you figuring that out? Because that's a lot. Like the demands for training just per hours per week seems like it would go up.
Yeah, and the recovery is the main thing. Like the hours are the hours, but what I've found that's helped me get to this level, let's just say from September to April this year, it's like I'm not drinking almost at all, which kind of sucks in social situations to like be that guy on a Friday night when you're out for beers, or my wife's like, hey, do you want to go get a cocktail, like something we love? I'm like, nah, I got a 100-mile ride at 7 a.m., and so I'm making those harder decisions. We're like staying home more. I'm not traveling to see my friends and family in the Bay Area because it disrupts training and disrupts the training rhythm. So things like that, right? She just went to New York City with my sister last weekend. I chose not to go. I'm home training, getting ready for St. George. All of the time I can take off this year is for racing. So we don't have any vacations planned. And she can't make it to New Zealand, but we're going to Mont Tremblant together. She's coming to St. George, and then I'm going to go to Placid by myself. And then, so we do have a wedding, which is really exciting. That'll be our like vacation that we're going to get to go on together. But there's a little bit of, triathlon is just such a selfish endeavor, which sucks at times because it requires you dedicate your whole self, not just the training hours to it. And it means the 9 p.m. bedtimes, the 5:30 alarms, the recovery and sitting your butt on the couch on the weekends instead of going out and playing 18 holes after a 5-hour ride, because that screws up my next day. And so that's the thing actually that I've had to start really respecting, especially coming off of a year of injury where I was just keep trying to do it all. I'd ride 100 miles, I'd come home, I'd throw on a jacket and I'd go out for a beer, and then I'd go out and go to a concert, and then I'd come home and try to do it all again the next day. And that doesn't work. You have to respect basically my day is a 100-mile ride, and then I come home and sit on the couch and I watch Netflix and I go to bed at 9. And that's how I've lived, or how we have lived largely for the last year. And I hate to say that it's working, but it is.
Yeah. So are you planning on trying to have kids?
Yes, we definitely will. Because she's just starting her career. She's a couple years younger than me. We're not in a rush. So
yeah, sure.
I'd say within 5 years probably, but definitely could not do what I'm doing with work, triathlon, and kids. I'd have to pick 2 of the 3.
What would you pick right now? She comes home, Justin, I'm pregnant.
Oh, that is a fun question. Oh, man. I would do what I'm doing for the next 9 months and see how good I get in triathlon. And then probably depends how good I am. If I get better, I'd probably quit my job and try to do triathlon. It's the first time I've ever said that out loud, definitely publicly, but
it's getting clipped, posted tomorrow.
I think I'm at the point now. I always felt okay, I was ranked 250 and I was a new pro. And I was oh, if I crack top 100, I'm gonna start making $100,000 a year in triathlon, and it won't be like that. It won't be be tech director money, but it'll be enough to live in Henderson, and my wife will make money, and I'll just be a pro, and I'll make 6 figures. And I'm just shocked by how little money is in the sport, and just how cutthroat it is. Even at the highest level, forget top 100, top 50 world rank, it's still really, really tough.
You're still grinding.
You're still grinding, and you have to be performing over and over and over. I was talking to Mark about this, he just made 10 grand. That's a huge day for him, but you get 7th at Oceanside, he said, in his own post, that doesn't pay the rent. So you're grinding. And I think something that's been really nice in triathlon is I haven't ever had to think about the financial side. It's not a variable for why I race or which races I choose or anything like that. Because I have a day job, and I would want to make sure that I was in a financial place to still not have to think about that as an input to why I'm doing the sport. Because if you're in it for the money, you're doing the wrong sport.
Yeah, for sure. So let me walk this hypothetical one step closer to the edge. So the 9 months come, you actually had an injury 3 months in, and you didn't quite get where you want to performance-wise. If you go and you just let triathlon go and you don't quit your job, do you think that you're going to be happy with that decision in perpetuity?
Letting triathlon go is interesting. I think I'd have to reframe my approach to what I'm trying to achieve in the sport. I think I'd go back to racing amateur, and, do a few races a year and do some specific training blocks like I used to, 12 to 15 hours a week, or 10 hours a week, even early mornings. Lots of very great amateur athletes have done that with children and a day job, and the playbook is there. You can do it. And so I'd probably do that and just reframe my approach and not try to become a top professional triathlete, which is kind of my current pursuit, I suppose. And, I think I'd be super motivated by my career. I still am in my day job. I'd find even other outlets to channel that energy into. Maybe I'd pick up golf and get really into that, or just plan more international travel, get back into skiing, all things that I haven't done in the last couple of years. I think that would bring me a ton of joy. And then obviously having a child in this theoretical situation, which I'm super looking forward to, hopefully not in 9 months, but in the next 3 to 6 years, let's say, I'd be, just channeling just as much energy into that kid as my parents did when I was a kid. And I can't wait to be a dad and go through that journey. But hopefully the timeline shakes out. You don't always get to choose things perfectly, but my perfect timeline's chase pro triathlon for 2 or 3 more years, get so good that I am rolling in cash from triathlon, or at least in a financial place where I don't have to think about money as much, quit my job, go all in, travel the world for like 2 years, and then retire at 36 and have a family and go back into a new tech endeavor, either as a founder or join an earlier stage startup with a little more risk, a little more skin in the game maybe in my next job. Because I like working for the big company, but I've always been kind of like a scrappy startup type person, that I think later in my career I'd like to, roll the dice and do something big, maybe in the fitness industry or triathlon industry as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of opportunity, especially in the tech space. I think it's just starting to breed some new companies that have some real promise.
Totally.
Yeah. So we've talked through your potential transitions and how these different scenarios could play out. It's interesting to hear that. I just want to kind of make a comment because I've talked to a lot of professional athletes, and a lot of them, like you said, have come from like either a D1 background or some of them have been doing, short course triathlon for a very long time. And you get to this point to where your body is no longer able to continue where the mind wants to go. Like there's going to be a divergence, a decoupling eventually.
Yeah.
And a lot of these athletes really struggle with like this identity of like, how do I inject myself back in the workforce, especially Olympians and things like that. But you don't have that because you've obviously found like identity and all these other things. So I think that that's really neat to kind of see that you have those perspectives and the value you place on yourself in the different spheres.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, I think I struggle with the identity of being a pro triathlete of all things. I don't think of myself that way really. Oceanside was like, I mean, I guess I made a podium at 70.3 Cosmo last year, which is again like a dream. And then, the sport, I posted this recently, but the sport is cruel in the sense that as soon as you achieve a goal, you're on to the next one. Like you see Christian Blumenfeld wins Kona and then he's just disappointed if he doesn't win a second one, or, it's always this never ending hamster wheel. And so, I don't think of myself as a pro triathlete, I never have, but now I guess I am. At least a triathlete racing in the pro field is something my buddy Tom always says. Like, remember that you're an amateur racing in the pro field. You are not a pro. And,
keep you hungry,
keep balanced, stay humble, all of those things. And that's what I aspire to do. But I'm definitely feeling a little more pressure on myself going into St. George than I did at Oceanside. I think just going from bib number 23 to bib 7 back-to-back races is like, whoa, like I'm in
single digits, buddy.
Yeah. Might be in the press conference, might be in the, racing for a top 5, and I got my world slot and I'm going to go up against like, all those guys. Like, it's just like you get imposter syndrome for sure. But you just got to take a step back and say like, man, this is pretty amazing experience. Ride that wave because you may never be able to do anything like this again.
Yeah. So you've done the race, you're at mile 6, you look at your watch, you realize you have 6 miles left to go and you're feeling absolutely just terrible. You're not sure how you're going to make this happen. What are you going through in your mind like that brings you a source of, I'm putting another foot in front of the other?
Yeah, that's every single run for me and every 70.3.
Same.
The bike, I have no issues with confidence, and I just like freaking love it. Like, it just brings me joy. I'm like, I'm the man. I got this. Super overly confident ego. And then I get to the run and I like tear myself apart mentally. I'm like, oh, you're fat, you're slow, you're not good at running. Like, you're just slugging along. And then I have really tried to reframe this saying of just like, you are a good runner. And it's the simplest thing ever. But that's been my mantra lately. It's like, you're a freaking good runner. Like, you can run. You are a good runner. And just repeating that over and over in my head has fueled me through these races. There are a few other things I think about. Unfortunately, this one's a little more dark, but I think about 2 friends that I've lost over the last couple of years, both in horrible cycling, crashes. And I think about how grateful how lucky I am that I'm able to do this still, and that I'm alive and getting to do the thing that I love, that I've worked so hard for. And even if it sucks, even if you feel horrible, like, people who have had either career-ending injuries or even worse have passed away, like, don't get to do this thing that's just amazing. So I do draw on that only in the darkest of darkest moments, because it's a bit negative, I think, in some ways. So it's a balance of kind of like negative, just tightening the screws. I mean, sometimes it's really, really negative self-talk can motivate me, like just dropping F-bombs in my head and just saying, you are not really pushing to the deepest, darkest depths that you possibly could. work harder than everyone else. Like there's a saying, obviously, that two athletes of equal fitness, the one who will win is the one who can endure the most suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always subscribed to that. I think it's a strength of mine. Like my numbers in training don't always add up to my numbers on race day. And I think it's because I'm able to, like, as Lionel has said in his videos, like transcend your training numbers on race day with, a different level of how you show up that day.
This has been transformative in the way that I'm drawing from motivation. Just some of the only things that have been going in my mind the past few months and weeks, and then having some of these conversations with you and others, but specifically some of these things you're saying is like, it's really impactful. So I really appreciate you sharing some of the pieces of what goes on internally in your mind when you're pushing through and going through some of these imposter syndrome things, and you continue to progress. It's really insightful. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Seth. It's been awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, man. I have one more question for you, though.
All right.
It's a piece of advice that I'd like you to give to whoever may be listening, and that is, because there's a lot of things I could ask you actually based on a conversation, but the one that I really want to ask you is like, how do you be a good leader or great leader?
Oh, that's such a tough question. I think, how do you be a good leader? I think you have to know where you're leading them is the first, most simplest thing. I think people who might get positioned as being bossy or exhibit qualities of poor leadership don't necessarily have a vision for where they want to take you or where you can get to. So painting the picture for the person that you're leading of where you are taking them and the success that they could achieve as a result of your leadership, I think is the most important and most motivating thing that you can bring to somebody, whether it's managing a team and painting a picture for where they could be a year later in their careers, or whether it's coaching an athlete and leading them to, the next race and painting a picture for like, these are the results I believe you can achieve if you can follow this program. And also just being willing to listen. It's something that I have needed to actively work on in my career and growth as a human, but being willing to listen to people's own ideas and understand deeply what motivates them, and then playing to those motivations rather than, well, these are the things that motivate me, so surely they motivate others. Like that's just a big disconnect that I think you need to be willing to understand and be really sort of empathetic and have a high EQ of what's going to make this person tick and get them to the next level. Let's build the plan around that specifically. Play to those strings, if you will.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to let me dive into your life a bit and ask some good questions, some hypotheticals. It'll be really fun to obviously follow you next weekend, but through your entire journey in the next several years, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Seth. I'm sure you get this a lot, but now that we've talked about me for an hour, I want to interview you for an hour. So hopefully we get some time to hang out at a race one of these days this year. But it was a pleasure, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you again to Justin for coming on and sharing a bit about his life. Such a cool guy, obviously a deep thinker, great leader, and has a lot of love for the sport and everything that it encompasses. So very excited to have had him on. I do want to leave you with a little bit of the last few words that he shared about his advice. And that is basically, if you want to be a good leader, know where you are leading people and be willing to listen. If you made it to this far in the podcast, just want to say thank you so much. My name is Seth. Obviously, don't know why I said my last name, but we'll keep that in this outro. If you want to like, comment, subscribe, share, leave a review, do any of those things across all of the many platforms, that would very much, that would help us very much and help to grow the podcast. So if you could do that, that would be great. If you want to sign up for the newsletter for any future giveaways and be in the know-how about what's going on in the podcast world, you can do that at the stupidquestions.show website. There's a link at the top of the website where you can join that newsletter. And without further ado, I guess sayonara. We'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much. See ya.